In the shadowed halls of the Fenwick orphanage, laughter never echoed and no child's voice was ever heard. For decades, every orphan who entered its doors remained completely silent, as if the building itself had stolen their words. Were they frightened into muteness, or was something far darker keeping them quiet? This is the chilling history of the Fenwicks and their voiceless wards. The Fenwick family was once celebrated as benefactors of their small town, remembered for their generosity and the grand orphanage they built on the edge of the moors. With its towering brick walls and long rows of windows, the Fenwick orphanage appeared, at least from the outside, to be a place of hope, a refuge for children left with no one else to care for them. But behind that facade of charity, something deeply unsettling lurked. For reasons that have never been fully understood, every child who lived under the Fenwick's care was silent. Not shy. Not timid. Entirely mute. Teachers, visitors, even doctors who came to check on the children reported the same thing. The orphans never spoke a single word. Some even claimed that children who arrived talking would stop within days, their voices disappearing as if swallowed by the building itself. More than a century later, historians and locals remain haunted by the unanswered questions. Was the silence a result of cruelty, psychological terror, or something that defies explanation? Whatever the truth, the story of the Fenwicks and their voiceless orphans has become one of the most chilling and disturbing legends in the region's history. The Fenwick Orphanage was established in 1871 by Lord and Lady Fenwick, a wealthy couple who claimed to be driven by compassion rather than ambition. Publicly, they said their goal was to provide shelter, education, and opportunity to children who had been abandoned during a period of economic hardship. The building itself was grander than any other institution in the region. Sprawling gardens, a large dining hall, and dormitories that could hold dozens of children. At its opening ceremony, local newspapers praised the Fenwicks as the guardians of the forgotten. In its first months, the orphanage seemed to thrive. Donations poured in, and families grateful for the Fenwicks' charity sent letters of admiration. To outsiders, it was a sanctuary. But those who worked closest to the building noticed small, unsettling details almost immediately. The children were quiet, eerily so, even during meals and playtime. Teachers found it difficult to engage them in lessons. They stared blankly or avoided eye contact altogether. When visitors asked questions, the children would not answer. Some volunteers claimed that at night, faint sounds, half-formed whispers, seemed to move through the halls, though no child's lips were moving. These early signs hinted that something was wrong long before the truth became undeniable. Visitors to the Fenwick orphanage often left unsettled, unable to explain what they had witnessed. At first, they would assume the children were shy or simply well-disciplined. But after spending more time inside those walls, a disturbing realization always emerged. No child uttered a single word. Not during lessons, not during meals, not even when they were hurt or startled. The building seemed filled with life, yet utterly devoid of voices. Some visitors tried to break through the silence, kneeling down to the children's level, asking gentle questions, offering toys, or even trying to make them laugh. The result was always the same: blank stares, unblinking eyes, and a stillness that felt unnatural. It wasn't merely the absence of sound. It was as if the children had learned, or been forced, not to even attempt speech. Even more unsettling were the reports of new arrivals. Local families who had relinquished children claimed those boys and girls had been talkative, even playful, when they first entered the orphanage. Yet within days, they stopped speaking entirely. Their voices seemed to vanish as quickly and completely as if the building itself had taken them. As the unsettling truth about the Fenwick orphans spread, the town began to form its own theories. Some believed the silence was the result of strict and cruel discipline, that the Fenwicks punished children so severely for speaking that they eventually stopped trying altogether. Others suspected more deliberate psychological manipulation, whispering that the couple used isolation or strange methods to break the orphans into obedience. Yet darker stories circulated, ones that suggested something far beyond human cruelty. Former servants claimed certain wings of the orphanage were kept permanently locked, and that at night, faint chanting could be heard behind those doors. There were tales of rituals, unseen gatherings in the candlelit chapel where the Fenwicks supposedly demanded vows of silence from the children. The most disturbing accounts came from rare visitors who claimed they had seen children moving their lips as if trying to speak, but no sound emerged. Their mouths formed words, please perhaps, but nothing reached the air. Some even insisted they could feel vibrations in the room, like voices trapped between walls, unable to escape. Whatever the cause, the orphanage's silence was no longer seen as a sign of discipline. It had become a sign of something far more sinister. As unease in the town escalated, authorities eventually sent inspectors to the Fenwick orphanage. On paper, the visit was meant to ensure proper living conditions, but many hoped it would reveal the source of the children's silence. At first glance, everything appeared orderly: clean dormitories, ample food, and well-kept grounds. Yet beneath the surface, the investigators noticed strange details: windows nailed shut, certain hallways barred, and rooms lined with heavy locks on the outside rather than the inside. Former staff members, speaking only after they had left the orphanage, described strict rules they had been forced to follow. They were instructed never to question the children, never to allow them to write letters, and never to enter the East Wing after dark. One housemaid claimed she once saw a child crying silently in a corridor, desperately mouthing words that produced no sound. It was like his voice had been taken from him, she recalled years later. When confronted, the Fenwicks deflected suspicion with cold precision. They insisted the children were simply traumatized from their pasts, that silence was a form of healing discipline. Their records were meticulous, their public speeches convincing. Official reports noted unusual but not unlawful practices, allowing the orphanage to continue, at least for a while. The end came abruptly in the winter of 1897. One stormy night, a fire broke out in the East Wing, the same section long kept locked from staff and visitors. Neighbors rushing to help described seeing children standing at the upper windows, not screaming for rescue, but watching in eerie silence as smoke poured around them. By the time firefighters forced their way in, several children were missing, and those who were found refused to say a single word, even to indicate where the others had gone. The blaze drew immediate attention from the authorities. During the investigation, hidden rooms were discovered behind the East Wing walls. Narrow, windowless spaces with child-sized beds and walls covered in strange markings. The purpose of those rooms was never officially explained. The Fenwick family fled town within days, leaving the orphanage abandoned. Their exact fate remains unclear. Some say they vanished overseas, while others claim they never left the country at all. The surviving children were relocated to other institutions and foster homes. Records show that a few eventually regained their voices, but most remained withdrawn and silent for the rest of their lives. None ever spoke about what happened inside the Fenwick orphanage. The Fenwick orphanage still stands, though time has turned its once imposing structure into a crumbling shell. Locals avoid the grounds after dusk, claiming that even from the road, one can sense the same oppressive quiet that once filled its halls. Some urban explorers who have dared to enter describe a strange phenomenon. No matter how loud they speak, their voices seem to fade, as if absorbed by the walls. Ghost stories abound. People claim to hear faint whispers that seem to come from nowhere, soft, overlapping voices that stop the instant anyone tries to listen closely. Others report seeing small figures in the windows or feeling the tug of a child's hand, only to find no one there. What makes the Fenwick story endure is not just the orphanage's dark past, but the nature of its fear. Silence itself has become the haunting. It is not violent or loud, it's subtle, suffocating, and impossible to explain. That absence of sound, that sense that something should be there but isn't, continues to unsettle anyone who learns about the Fenwicks and their voiceless children. The story of the Fenwicks is a chilling reminder that what appears charitable on the surface can sometimes conceal something far darker. Their orphanage was celebrated as a sanctuary, yet behind its walls grew an unsettling mystery that defies explanation even today. Were those children silent because of deep trauma, deliberate cruelty, or something far beyond human understanding? More than a century later, the unanswered questions still haunt those who hear them. Was the Fenwick orphanage simply a place of fear, or was it something else entirely, a place where voices were taken rather than lost? What do you think? Was this tragedy born from human hands, or does the silence point to something supernatural? Share your theories in the comments, And if you want more stories like this, where history and horror blur, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay with us for more unsettling tales.